welcome back. I just made it back from Portugal and I'm getting right to work. I don't like idle hands, so it's time to get started on some projects. Let me introduce you to one of my next projects. We kind of shifted focus here because we have Import Face-Off coming up, and that is a big ride-along event for us. So that'll be taking place at Utah Motorsports Campus April 6th, whatever weekend that is. I got myself a new ride-along car, and it is this IS300. You can see the current condition is not great, but it's not bad. So first things first, I want to get a motor set up for it. I bought this car. Let me give you the tour. How does this work? There we go. A little bit dirty. It's got a bucket seat. Got a steering wheel. It's got a hydraulic handbrake already here. It was CDO9 swapped. It's got this beautiful white leather Altezza interior that's been redone. I'll tell you a little bit about it, but you can see we've got aftermarket coils. We've got a CDO9 shifter. So this was actually a car that my buddy Caleb got the chassis from me. I think maybe he crashed that one. I don't know. Anyways, he got a hold of that. Got a 2JZ with a CDO9, kind of the recipe, the formula that we've been using. And he had it, ended up throwing a rod. He got another motor, didn't finish putting it back together. So I got the car from him for a smoking deal. Thanks, Caleb. And I decided, you know what, this will be my next ride-along car, because that was supposed to be the Chaser, but now the Chaser is going to be a pro car because it got crashed and all that stuff. So now this is the next step in my ride-along path. I've been back and forth on what I wanted to do with it, but the decision I made was to go ahead and build a forged motor for it. This was actually the block I had already prepped and set aside for my Chaser. And let me show you a little bit about it. Has some really strong rods. The problem is these rods were in the Chaser when it blew up. So since the oil pump failed, all of these rods turned blue. Now I went ahead and had them resized, but I didn't do any like heat treatment. I don't even know what is the proper way to do this. Most people just throw them away. I'm not going to throw them away. So I was originally going to put them in the Chaser. I'm a little bit skeptical about running on a high horsepower motor, so I decided, you know what, why don't I just build this motor to go in that car with these somewhat questionable parts. A couple other things with this engine that I was worried about, not a big deal, but the block was cracked. We welded it. One of the bearing tabs for the mains was chipped, so the what do you call that? Detent? What's the word for it? I know the word. The tang. The detent for the tang was broken out on the end. So I doubt the bearing will walk out, but there's nothing necessarily holding it from moving. So risky, but I don't think it's that risky. So this, I would rather have this in a car that is not critical to my competition drifting. So that way if something fails, it's not a big deal. I mean, it is a big deal, but not like gonna ruin an event for me. These are high compression pistons. See if I have the spec sheet for them. They are made for a 1JZ, and they are 10-to-1 on a 1JZ, and they are 11-to-1 on a 2JZ. So these should be 11-to-1 pistons. I'm going to use an NA head and a 3076 turbo and try and run this at about 400 horsepower. Should be extra spicy with the high comp pistons. I'm going to run ethanol and probably 10, 12, 15 pounds of boost. Somewhere in that range. This one we're doing the external oil pump mod, and I think this will work really well. I'll probably do a AccuSump on this as well. But for now I'm going to put it together, get that all set up. I also decided I've never run a ring gap this tight ever. I usually run about 20 on my top ring and 24 on my second ring, and I always have blow-by issues because I like to run it so I don't have problems. But I was reading and I decided I could do a little bit tighter on the ring at the 15 and 20. Should give a lot less blow-by, and since I'm running this on ethanol with lower boost, the temperature on the piston and in the cylinder temperature overall should be lower, which is the biggest problem with having tight ring gap. So I think we'll be good on this one. I hope. Fingers crossed. All right, guys, it's finally time. I've been working on the engine for the IS300. Now it's time to push it in the shop, get a good look at it, and start tearing into it. Let's go. All right, let's have a look at this fine machine here. just a quick glance, we've got hood exit exhaust. Windshield's cracked, so we're gonna have to do something about that. It does have wide fenders. I think it's like a Rocket Bunny knockoff kit, so I don't know if I'm gonna stick with that or not. I'll probably do some bigger brakes on it. It does have this purple wrap. It would be very convenient to leave that for now, so I don't have to mess with that. There's some dents on the roof. Oh, those are pretty serious dents. The windows are tinted. That looks nice. And I noticed when we were pushing it in that the diff is welded, so that's not something I have to worry about. Let's look at what we got under the hood. So the brake lines look like they're done up for the hydro already. The ABS is deleted, so that's nice. That'll save a little bit of time. It looks like it's bent on this side. That needs to go back a little bit. Not a huge deal. That is a problem, so I guess we won't be using engine bay wiring. It has some sort of coilovers. We'll get it up in the air and see what we got. But I mean, it's a good start, right? We've got a fuel pressure regulator. We have a Turbo Smart boost controller. So for what I paid for this car, it looks like it's got quite a bit of stuff already for it. So I hope we don't run into any major issues that are gonna cause problems. But I actually have the WiseFab rack relocation kit, so I will be doing that on this as well, and then I'll be going back to the Easy Knuckle stuff that I had on my Chaser before I went to WiseFab. So that stuff drove amazing. So I think that paired with the rack relocation kit should make this steering really, really good. So let's have a look under this thing. First thing I noticed is a bunch of red parts. We have upper control arms and toe arms. So that's nice. It's got it aftermarket sway bars. The axle bolt is about to come out. That's pretty common on these. I've had that happen on my cars after you mess with the bolts. Looks like the axle boots could use replacement. It's already got fuel lines plumbed from the back, so he must have done the mod for the return fuel system. It's got Rev 9 coilovers. It might be rusty. Maybe I'll give those a spray right now. What else? Oh, it has the angle adapters. What are those? Whoa! These are actually some knuckle adapters that I had made out of steel. So I'm actually pretty stoked on that. Coilovers, steering rack. I mean, it's pretty much a basic chassis that's just ready to have a bunch of parts thrown at it. So let's get going. All right, today I decided to take a break from working on the engine. We got everything bolted together, aside from the oil pan basically and some of the accessories. I couldn't find the motor mounts in the boxes that I got from Caleb, but I've got 400 engines here that are from IS300, so I just got to pull some off another engine. I actually have a box full of engine mounts, but they are somewhere underneath one of those totes up there, and I don't want to go digging around up there, so I'll just pull them from another block. Pretty sure one of those two JZs right there has them. No, that one's missing. I've got all these engines up here. Maybe I have them. I don't know. They're somewhere on one of these engines. I don't know which one's going to be the easiest to pull them off of, but I'll figure that out. So what I decided to do today, since I'm taking a break from that, is to mess with the suspension on this. I actually want to pull the front subframe out and do the WiseFab kit. Where is it? WiseFab rack relocation kit. I have it right here. It's a cut and weld kit to move the rack forward. I have everything I need for that. And I wanted to just do some suspension stuff today. So I'm going to check out the coilovers. I've got these upper arms. I've got, as I was telling you before, I've got all this stuff from the Easy Knuckles kit. And so I want to put all that in with the rack forward kit. But first I'm going to start tearing it apart and see what I have for coilovers. These I got from my buddy Wesley. They are from a GS350. I should be able to use some of the shocks and some of the mounts The only thing that was wrong with these was the lowers were blown out. So I'll pull off what I've got. Those are actually Rev 9 also. This is perfect. These are Rev 9s, those are Rev 9s. I'm gonna be able to make something work from both of these kits. But in order to go through all that, obviously I've got to tear it apart. So let's do a time lapse. Go. All right guys, we made some good progress today. We actually got the oil pan on, we got the motor mounts, everything's pretty much ready to go except for the turbo stuff, but the engine can be set in the car now as it sits. Right now we're getting the clutch lined up, and then this is the CD09 swap kit, and so it actually uses a LS T56 style bearing, and so we always have to check our measurement and shim to make sure that the release bearing pushes on the clutch properly and that this part of the shaft in there doesn't touch the clutch disc. I've had that happen before where you bolt it together and then it basically just locks up. And so we're taking a measurement to verify that we have plenty of clearance. This is the trans that came off this engine, but I did put a different clutch, so it's gonna be really close, but we just wanna make sure that we don't run into any issues. So once that's done, we'll have this all bolted together, and then tomorrow we can go ahead and stuff it in the car. But can't do that until we modify the subframe. We got the subframe out today, so we can cut that, do the WiseFab rack forward kit on that tomorrow. If that all goes smooth and quick, then we can put everything back together, slide the engine in, put the coilovers on, and put the car back on the ground. Because we literally have everything else we need. I took these coilovers home and basically took them all apart, lubed them up, swapped the lower bushings in the bottom there because they were blown out. And I think they'll be pretty good coilovers. This car, I'm actually gonna call it budget build number 2, because I got this car for $4,500 with all these parts that it came with, which is really cheap for what it is. A full 2J swap, all these extra parts, rods, engine block, everything for this. So that's really cheap to get a turboed IS300 with the CD09, drive shaft already done, coilovers, steering angle. And I'm trying to take parts that I already have to make this car complete. So as cheap as possible. I'll bet we'll be under $7,000 or $8,000 with this car, fully driftable, like 400 horsepower, ready to go. So that's my goal. We'll see how it works out. We made a bunch of progress that we haven't filmed yet, but I want to get back into showing what we're doing. So first of all, I got coilovers on here. They were the ones that came off of there. You can't see them. They are Rev 9 coilovers, and I took them all the way apart, greased them up, checked the valving and stiffness, and it all seems to be working pretty well. They're not leaking. We did an angle kit in the front, and it is an extended lower control arm with a knuckle adapter that we built. It's based on all the offset knuckle adapters that are on the market. We just made it out of steel because the aluminum ones seem to break. So it's super wide. I ended up using WiseFab tie rods, and then S14 outer tie rods. So inners are WiseFab, S14 outers because it's super wide. And then we modified the subframe with the WiseFab rack forward kit. So no offset rack spacers, and car's super wide. It's got a bunch of camber. It's got some Godspeed upper front arms. Super basic. I want to call it budget angle kit because it's stuff that I had, but I mean, you guys know that the rack forward kit from WiseFab is I think $300 or $400. And then, I mean, all the other parts really aren't that expensive. You can cut and weld your own arms. It's all doable, right? I got these wheels for $400 on Marketplace. They've just been spray painted white. They look really cool. 18 by 9.5 plus 38. This is the engine we were working on. So this is a 11-to-1 compression, 2J Manley rods, used rods, brand new pistons. So there's a little bit of money in this engine. New oil pump. It's a 25 over cut crank, and this is a Tundra alternator conversion. That's an IS300 CX manifold. This was on my budget car before, so we welded the 3076 small housing to it. So this is the exact precise size turbo housing that I want to use for this build to get 400 horsepower with tons of mid-range punch. It's probably not going to rev very high because it chokes off up high, but it's going to be a fast spooling turbo. Other than that, I haven't done much to the car. I was going to start adjusting ride height and stuff, but man, it's looking pretty good as it is right now. I was going to do fuel system stuff tonight. This one actually has, I think I showed you what we're going to do, a remote oil filter. So the oil, instead of going through the block, that's been blocked off, and it's just going to come out to the oil cooler, oil filter, and then back in to the side of the block right there where the oil filter goes. So should have a really good oiling system. I might do an AccuSump. I'm not sure yet. I want this to be really reliable since this will be a ride-along car. It does have this rocket running style wide body, so I don't want to use this long term, but for this next event I may just hold it up there and then self-taper it on it, just to get something that looks good. And then I still have half a roll of this wrap, so I'm probably going to rock this wrap for now. Oh yeah, in the trunk we've got a surge tank fuel system that was working, so I'm going to run it how it was. Should be enough fuel for the 400 horsepower we're aiming for. And then we got just other random stuff that came with the car. We've got the oil coolers, that manifold I decided not to go with. We have the intercooler piping, aluminum radiator, and yeah, enough stuff that this car should be pretty good. I do have a BN Sports kit that I might put on here. It's not going to really look good with the Rocket Money, but it should help the car look good overall. A couple of things that I didn't want to skimp on is I went and bought the LED taillights, which I think look really good on these cars. So let's open those up and see what they're like. I think these are the best looking cheap taillights that you can get for this car. And they're not super cheap. I think they were still like 250 bucks on eBay. So not the cheapest, but for what they cost, I think it's the best taillight you can get. I think you should tie this car together. It'll probably look good with the purple too. Kind of dark. Yeah, dude, that looks good. I'm pretty sure I have some stuff left over from the budget car. I don't have taillights because they got broken, but let's go see what we can find. Let's see, digging through my stuff. All right. I think these are them. They're not perfect, but they can definitely be cleaned up. G35. There's another IS headlight. Got a bunch of doors. Doors for days for IS is up here. I think my body kit's up here somewhere too. But for now, this is what I need. So here, Jake and I found a couple of threaded holes in the chassis for the transmission mount that were stripped out. So we had to run a helicoil in there. That's what we're doing. And now we're lining up the shifter. And as you guys know, when you get to this point in the build, when it involves like a drive shaft and all the adapter components for the transmission, things add up really quickly cost-wise. And so, you know, you look at a drive shaft like 400 bucks, the GK shifter relocation is like 300 bucks, the you know, a clutch is 600 bucks, the transmission's, you know, 1,000 to 1,500 depending on where you get it. So it adds up really quick. And so the fact that all this stuff was already paid for made a huge difference for me in this being a budget build, right? Because it was all included in the cost of the car. So I've always said it's cheaper to take over someone else's build than to start from scratch. You can debate whether that's better or worse, but it is definitely cheaper. And in this case, that's a perfect example. It's got a lot of parts. A lot of the work is already done for me, but of course there's things that I want to do to make it my own. This thing sat outside for a while in the snow, so we'll see what we get coming out of here. That's not bad. Some good looking fluid. Hopefully this trans is in good shape. It's always good when a CD09 shifts well. This is another one of those things I've had happen on my other IS300s and on my Chaser, is that these axle bolts, they just love to back out. And being Allen headed, they're kind of hard to get in there without stripping them out, either going in or out, stripping out the head, I mean. And so the fact that I got this car, lifted it up, and all these were loose just told me that, you know, it's definitely a common problem. So I was going through here and I've kind of figured out how to get them really, really tight so they don't come out again. But it's just funny that it's something that I've seen on literally every car I've had with these same axles. But I think I've got the solution, and that's what I'm doing right here. So I thought it was ironic, and so I decided to film that part. Hey guys, we're back at it again. I'm officially calling, I don't know how many times I said this, but I'm officially calling this Budget Build 2.0. I did find some headlights. Got them kind of in place. That's good enough. A couple zip ties ought to hold that in. Got the taillights installed. And definitely makes the car look better for sure. And then I didn't film that, but we got these over fenders on. Not my favorite style, but I have them and they fit. So that's what we're going to use for now. But it's coming together. Car looks definitely a lot better than when we first started. One thing I noticed that we're going to deal with right now is if you look down, see if you can get a good perspective of this. This side is bent outward. So this car has definitely been mangled a little bit. But what's funny is someone welded it back together in place here. So they tack welded this crookedly. These are my cuts. I'm hacking away at this thing, trying to get it freed up so I can bend it back in place and then re-weld it. I'm not really doing precision cuts here because I'm just going to reinforce it once it's done. And I want to follow the budget build theme, which is doing a mediocre job. Just kidding. I definitely could have done better here. I didn't want to grind that ugly spot weld. I want to actually cut around it, pull this forward, and then I'll probably reinforce this a little bit. So what I'm going to do is use a pickup point back there on the frame, use a ratchet strap, and pull this backwards. All right, let's see if this thing moves. Hey, it's moving. Hey, look at that. Keep going. Yeah, keep going. I don't know. I guess we could lift it, right? It's a, we're on a lift. Oh yeah, that's going. That's, man. We're not really a body shop, but like, this is, oh, hold on. Let me get some measurements here. I think we might be in the range. Let's see how far we moved. That's pretty far. What's disappointing is whoever did this before couldn't figure this out before they welded it together. They just like welded it. It's unfortunate, but this is good. This is good. I'm basically going to take a measurement from the subframe here to the lower point on this and then match it left to right, and then we'll weld it in place. I'm going to go from right inside here in that pocket to right here, which is 21 1/4. This side we'll do the same thing. 21. Dang, that's really close. Close enough. Let's send it, dude. Let's just weld it up. All right, that turned out pretty good. Plenty of spots to weld. Super strong, super straight. So I'm gonna hit that with some paint and then move on to the next step. All right, guys, welcome back. It's another day. I've made a lot of progress without filming because my hands were dirty. But it's after hours now. I've been working on this thing nonstop. But let me show you kind of what we did today. On all my cars, I've been using these Volvo electric power steering pumps. This one we actually got mounted. We did a bracket. This was actually Brody's idea. It's a direct copy of what we did on the Chaser. And this chassis, I mean, from firewall forward is very similar to the Chaser. So I kind of copied, even though it's left-hand, right-hand drive, it doesn't make a difference because this goes on the frame. The 2J has nothing over here since we're not using power steering or air conditioning. So we have this big empty space to use. And so what we do is we literally just cradle the bottom of the pump inside of a piece of exhaust tubing. I think this is 4-inch tubing. we cut a slit on the back side so it can kind of open and close, and then we put a clamp around it, brace it up to the frame. There's a brace in the back too, and it actually is pretty solid. So, and then of course we're running our power and ground. This will go directly to the starter positive because that's the closest power source, but I'm going to put it through a 40 amp circuit breaker. Actually, no, this is a high amperage. I'm going to have to do an 80 amp or 100 amp circuit breaker, and then that will just mount on the frame rail back there and then run down to the positive. This has a switch coming into that connector right there, and we actually got this fancy kit that has a potentiometer so you can actually turn the pump up. I haven't experimented or used this yet, so this will be the first time using it on a car. So this basically runs into the dashboard. You have your potentiometer up down switch, and then this connects into the pump. So hopefully that works out well. I did bench test the pump, so I know it turns on with this thing connected, so I guess we'll see how all that works. Aside from that, I've told you guys I'm using this, I'm going to call it the Rad Dan setup because that's who I learned it from. We are running from the pump directly out, and I made a split-second decision because these oil coolers are sus, as the kids would say. They came off of a motor that did throw a rod. I don't know how long it knocked before, but there's probably some junk in there, and I'm going to flush them out before we do all this, but Jesse and I were talking about it, and I like to take risks, unnecessary risks. But what I'm going to do, normally I would go engine, filter, oil coolers, back to the engine. But what I'm going to do instead is go engine, oil coolers. Any junk that comes out of the oil coolers over time will get trapped by the filter, and then filter to engine. And that way whatever is coming out of the coolers will always be filtered. Normally that wouldn't be a problem because your filter would trap anything and then it wouldn't get into the oil coolers. But now that there's a potential that there's stuff in the oil coolers, which there shouldn't be because it should have been filtered before it goes in the coolers, but there's always a potential, right? So we're going to run it this way. We have the oil feed coming off this sandwich plate. That's going to go around over to feed the turbo. And then we have our oil pressure sensor also coming off this sandwich plate. And then Jesse made this fancy bracket. And this is a Subaru oil filter because that's what fit. Let's see, aside from that, we got the rail, we got the manifold, we got the engine in. Transmission stuff's done, the shifter's on. So basically right now we're just working on mounting the radiator and the intercooler stuff. I'm going to run the D-Spare Edition NRG carbon wheel. I need to do some work on this handbrake, and the GK Tech shifter's in place. So things are coming together inside there. We got this Amazon special switch panel. I don't know if you can see it. So we shouldn't need much since we're running the EMU. The EMU can control the fuel pumps, the fans, all that stuff. So that switch panel will literally just be to turn on the power. Another thing I want to show you guys. That is the harness coming forward to the engine. So I asked Caleb what that was all about, and he said nothing worked, so he cut it all, and then he ran his powers from the inside. So that shouldn't affect anything. I was really worried about that, but really I can just run wires to my headlights, power everything engine-wise from inside, and then he said the windows and everything still works as long as you power the fuse boxes inside off of something else. So that's the point we're at right now. We did some riv nuts. I love riv nuts. I can't express how much I love using riv nuts. We're going to mount the oil coolers down here right now, and then start plumbing that stuff up. So once oil is plumbed and everything is tight that way, then I guess we're one step closer to starting it. I have the engine harness from the Chaser over here. So I need to repin that to an EMU Classic because we're running a black, and then fix a couple things. It's not beautiful, but it's not bad. It's got heat shrink. I did a decent job on that one, so it should be good enough for this budget car. Like I said, everything we're doing on this is going to be as budget as possible, but it's also turning out to be quite a nice build. So on to the next step. We got the oil coolers all mounted up. Some wacky routing here. Basically, I was just using what fittings I had, and it kind of works. It swoops up. Obviously, 90s being low profile would be better looking, but these swoops kind of give some good oil flow. We get through there by the radiator really tight, and so once I get the radiator mounted and stuff, I'll come through, trim that up, make sure that these are protected with, you know, like a slit rubber hose that goes around it, so there's no vibration, abrasion, and everything seems to fit pretty well down here. Perfect fitment on the radiator fan. And since these are both mounted to the chassis and the engine's gonna move a little bit, those shouldn't have any issues between each other. I think that's all gonna work out great. So I'm happy with how that came out. And I'm moving on to mounting the seat. I sat in there and the seating position wasn't ideal for what I wanted. Oh man. This is my door stop because it keeps trying to slam on me. There we go. So something really cool that Caleb did. Good job, Caleb. He mounted the Prisma Energy slider, or the Prisma Energy brackets, to the OEM seat slider. So it has electric seats with a Prisma mounted to it. So just if you guys are trying to copy this, here's just a quick, I'm not sure exactly what he did, but obviously these are bolted on there. I'm not sure if he had to cut or bolt or whatever. Obviously this is notched right here. But I think these studs are factory studs, and the seat belt is still bolted there. So everything works out really nicely, and that is super cool. This is a Prisma size large, which is my preference. This is the seat that came in the car, but this is actually what I would have chosen. I really, really love these Prisma seats, and being that it's black and Alcantara and large, this is like basically the seat that I would have chosen anyways. So super stoked on that, and it's already in the car. So the reason I took it out is because I am gonna lower it, drop it down, and a little bit of gangster lean. I like to sit tilted back and pretty low. So I'm gonna get that fitted up right now. So we got the seat mounted, it's all in place. It's a little bit dirty, we gotta clean it up, but it sits how I like it. And the best part, like I told you guys, is it moves on its own, electronically. That's super awesome. I'm so glad Caleb figured that out. I would have never even tried that. That is awesome. I love these NRG Prisma. This is the Ultra, the black Ultra in a size large, and it's just like the perfect seat for this kind of car. I love it. All right guys, so now that I'm on to editing the first episode of this video, a lot has happened, and it's been a few weeks since the very beginning of that video until now. And I'm already episode 2 and 3, so I don't want to tell you what's going on, but a lot is happening. You're definitely not going to want to miss episode 2. Some crazy events, some crazy changes have taken place with this build, so stay tuned for that. Thanks for watching this one, and follow along for part 2, part 3, and more. Bye.